Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Elizabeth Holmes. Our NC Capital team has been reporting on developments with two of the biggest economic development deals in North Carolina history, projects that promise more than 20,000 jobs. State officials this month agreed to tweak performance deadlines for aerospace manufacturer JetZero. They plan to create more than 14,000 jobs. And the state is distancing itself from another project. VinFast plans for a factory in Chatham County, where the automaker plans to create 7,500 jobs. WRAL state government reporter Jack Hagel has been talking with top commerce officials about the developments, and he joins us today. Now, just a quick reminder, we are recording this on May 29th, 2026. If you're watching this on our YouTube channel, be sure to hit like and subscribe. And be sure to listen to more daily download episodes just like this. All you have to do is go to wherever you get your podcast. Now, here's our conversation. Jack, good to see you.
Good to see you.
All right, we've got some big changes that we're talking about, big and small, to two of the biggest economic development projects in state history. What happened?
Well, the two projects are JetZero, which is a California company that wants to build these super futuristic, fuel-efficient planes. They want to bring 14,500 jobs to the state. And then there's an electric vehicle company called VinFast, and they promised to bring about 7,500 jobs to the state to a site out in Chatham County. Now, the outcomes here are a little bit different. They're both a little bit behind, but JetZero wants to basically just move some hiring targets. Basically, they said they were going to hire a bunch of jobs in 2027. Now they're saying, you know what, we're going to just go ahead and promise to hire those people in 2028 and 29. We'll spread them out. Meanwhile, the development with VinFast is that the state sued them. They're a little bit delayed on their factory out in Chatham County. The state says, hey, you breached this contract, and we want to have the land back to maybe sell it to another company that might be looking to grow here.
So why is the state involved in the first place?
The state's involved because it has these incentives deals, economic incentive deals with these companies. So when a big company says they want to move to our state and maybe they're competing, North Carolina, it might be competing with another state to bring this company. States offer incentives such as tax rebates and that sort of thing. And so in the case of VinFast, the state was offering more than $300 million in incentives, up to, I should say, $300 million and $1 billion for JetZero. And so the state is interested when a company starts to see delays, that sort of thing, because there are these incremental performance targets. And so they say every year you got to hire this many people and you got to invest this amount of money, and then we'll give you a little bit of that money over a period of years. And so that's really kind of why they're paying attention to these.
And so what happens if a company doesn't meet those targets?
Well, a couple things can happen. One, the state might say, okay, well, what's going on here? And it may be something as simple as a supply chain issue that's slowing construction down, or a major economic event, and the state might work with the company to tweak some of their deadlines. That's kind of what happened with JetZero. Or they may try to terminate the deal. They might say, look, you guys, you're not hiring, you're not investing. We promised you this money, but we're not going to pay it to you unless you start hiring. And maybe we just kind of part ways here. And actually, a lot of companies just instigate that themselves. They might say, look, we've changed course strategically, so we really appreciate working with us, but I think it would be better if we just kind of terminate this deal. And so that happens pretty frequently because things change. And those performance targets are really the state's protection against that investment. I think a lot of people, when they hear a big number like that and a company doesn't come, I think there's a lot of outrage. But really, the state won't pay out that money unless those jobs are created or unless that investment is made. And so that's why they kind of pay attention when there are changes in these things. And so, that was kind of the case with JetZero. They had planned on creating hundreds of jobs. I think it was like 800 or something to that effect in 2027. They said there was some delay that caused them to slow down. And so, I think the total they're going to, by 2029, it has to be like 3,000. So rather than doing some in 2027, 28, and 29, they're just going to lump all those into 28 and 29. And by 29, they'll be on target, on their way to, almost 1,500 jobs.
So obviously two different approaches here with delayed projects. Why didn't VinFast get the same kind of leniency as JetZero?
Well, the state tends to look at each of these projects individually. I don't think they have a hard line on these things because, sometimes it's a really, really deep-pocketed company and it may just be a blip. Sometimes it might be something else. And I think they tend to give the benefit of the doubt to companies that they think are acting in good faith. I spoke with Commerce Secretary Lilley this week about that, and here's how he put it with JetZero. Take a look.
And as that's progressed, we just knew that we probably needed to have a little more time before we started doing the performance metrics that guarantee the payment of JDIG funds. And so that's a specific case. We still really feel really good about that project. They're going to break ground June 15th. General Assembly's been an incredible partner in this, and they're moving through their process as well. So we see good things coming.
As for VinFast, the state said the company missed a really important development deadline. And as a result, it triggers an option for the state to buy land back from the company. And their land is in Chatham County and not too far from the Triangle. Some people consider Chatham County now part of the Triangle, right. But certainly the Triangle region, close to a major international airport, not too far from other major manufacturers in the Triad. It's a really valuable site in North Carolina. And so the state wants to buy it back. They also want to claw back millions of dollars that they have invested in infrastructure to make that site go. And so that's kind of where we are with that.
So what did Lilley say about VinFast?
Well, he couldn't talk much about it, in large part because they're in litigation, and I think generally they just don't want to talk about things that are being actively litigated. But he did reiterate kind of what the lawsuit says. Here, take a listen.
We believe that they have materially breached what was in the contract with the state, and so therefore we're exercising the state's option to acquire that property and hopefully generate great economic activity out of that site.
So the state is saying that VinFast breached contract. How is VinFast responding to this?
Well, I think this whole case is going to come down to what constitutes vertical construction. VinFast was supposed to meet a deadline many months ago of starting vertical construction, and if they miss that deadline and a number of subsequent deadlines, the state could buy the property back. Now, the state says they have not begun vertical construction. We even flew Sky 5 over there, and you can't really see. You don't see a building, that's for sure.
Yeah, I remember looking at it.
Yeah, and so the state says no vertical construction, but the company says, no, we actually have built some things that are indeed vertical. They pointed to the footers that are things that sort of hold up the foundation of the building. So they say, well, that kind of constitutes vertical construction, even though it's in the ground. They say that there are some water basin walls that they consider to be vertical construction. And so the state says, look, we're just going to have a judge decide, but we want this to have this land back. So, the company was supposed to have begun construction. This was another one of their development deadlines. They were supposed to have production start by July 1st, basically in a number of weeks here. Mm-hmm. The state says there's no way that they're going to be able to do that. And in fact, the company has said, we are delayed and we plan to build by 2028. And the state says, look, you're even saying that you're not going to begin until after this deadline. So we'd like to exercise this option. That's kind of where things are right now.
So why is VinFast saying that they're delayed?
So there have been a number of reasons why. VinFast is really a startup company that's competing with a lot of other electric vehicle manufacturers around the world, and they're trying to break into the U.S. market. And they've told investors for a long time, look, there are certain U.S. policies that are going to enable us to compete in North America, in particular the U.S. There was what was the EV buyer tax credit, so people who bought electric vehicles could get a $7,500 tax credit, and that was mostly for companies whose vehicles, a certain percentage of their vehicles were manufactured in the U.S. So by building a plant in the U.S., that would enable them to sell their vehicles at a lower rate and compete with other automakers. Those tax credits went away under the Trump administration. And so once that happened, or once it became apparent that would happen, you started to see the company make moves to kind of slow down its rollout of its division. They're saying, look, there have been some challenges. There's been some delays. We are going to we still plan on continuing with construction, and we still plan on opening by 2028. That's where they stand right now. That's what they're telling investors. That's what they're telling the state. That's what they're telling us.
Interesting. So JetZero said that it needed to push back its hiring targets because of the delayed state budget. That's something that we've talked about a lot on this podcast. Right. So what's that all about?
Well, like the VinFast project, the state offered hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure improvements, things like roads and sewage and things like that to enable a big factory like that to work. Some of that money has been appropriated in the current fiscal year, the 25-26 fiscal year that's very close to ending. And some of it was promised in the next budget year. Now, state lawmakers, the House and the Senate, have been sort of at odds over spending. And as a result, we currently don't have a new budget for the fiscal year that we're in. We're operating under old funding,
right.
And we don't have an approved budget for the next fiscal year. Now, state lawmakers say, look, we've given you the money for this year. We're on schedule, and we plan on having a deal for the next budget year. Everything's good. And that's also what Lilley told me today. Here's what he had to say.
I think that the General Assembly's been great on all of this, and it always was projected that there were going to be tranches of appropriation over each successive fiscal year. So I think we're still working with JetZero on the agreement. We're ready to get them up and running. They're ready to break ground on June 15th. We are counting on the General Assembly to continue to move forward with appropriations. I think that's going to work out well.
So what does the company have to say about it?
Well, that's a good question. Like I said, the lawmakers and Lilley, and if you look at the state budget, it makes it pretty clear that everything's on schedule. The company, I reached out to the company, they never got back to me, but I wonder, and this is probably the question I would have posed to them, was there some sort of guarantee that the money was going to be in their pockets by a certain date for them to have a contractor or a construction company begin work on something? Oftentimes, those companies need that guarantee, and there's been a very public delay in these budget negotiations. Maybe whoever it was, they were either financing the deal with or promising the money to in order to do the construction services, to say, look, I don't feel good about this. Maybe we just wait until there's a deal. And so I think that's kind of why that adjustment was made. And they made the proposal to the state. The Commerce Department said, okay, we feel good about this, and so that's why they did the deal.
Interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. Jack,
Absolutely.
Thanks for chatting with us today.
Thank you.
All right, that was my conversation with Jack. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for listening to the WRAL Daily Download and for making us part of your routine. Another way to get more WRAL news, in addition to our YouTube channel and this podcast, is the Morning Briefing newsletter. It's a daily email with Triangle news, events, and headlines to help get you ready for the day. Sign up at WRAL.com/newsletter.